there are some shrooms. Hello, welcome to Brynwood Farm. We are up at our beautiful acreage today, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about planning in terms of planning your farm, where you're going to put things, and just thinking through the process. So our land has obviously been in my family for a long time, so in terms of kind of the layout and the topography, I've been here all my life, so I kind of know that it's, you know, where we are at the moment is on a hill, so I kind of know that it all drains away down to the front of the farm. So we're at the back of the farm at the moment, and it backs on, it runs along a road. So the front of the farm is right down by the road, and that's lower, and the back of the farm is higher up on some hills. So I know that the water table is sort of leveling off and going down towards the road. So that, in terms of where I'm going to place things, actually has a massive impact, because down the bottom of the farm gets really wet and muddy. So I'm not going to put animals down there. That would be foolhardy of me to put animals down there, because come the winter when we've got loads of rain, that's going to be where all the water ends up. So this kind of area, so this field, and then also the field just over this hedge here, they are the higher fields. So that's going to be the kind of the fields that we graze on in the winter. When it comes to hedgerows and fencing as well, again, actually if you look here, this is a prime example. This hedge is going to keep no animal inside it. When my granddad owned the farm and when it was managed properly, he had tight hedgerows, proper traditional tight hedgerows, which acted as a barrier. So you didn't need fencing because you had your hedgerows. However, we have, even if I then worked to get those traditional hedgerows back, we actually have very few fields. So we have 4 fields, I think. So they are way too big. So if you look at this field behind me, this field is absolutely vast. I did work out the acreage of each field, and I can't remember how many acres this is, but this is a huge field, and you can't just stick animals in here and just let them go wherever they want, because that's not going to get you the grazing that you want to get. So we're going to be using mob grazing, rotational grazing, and then livestock follow through. So instead of just throwing animals into one big field and letting them go where they want, you actually want to treat them more like their natural behaviour would. So in mob grazing, you basically bunch your animals together. So most of your animals on your farm are prey. They're cows, they are sheep, they are chickens, they're prey animals. And so their natural instinct is to stay together in a herd, because they don't want to be out around the edges of each other, because they'll get picked off in the wild. So mob grazing plays on that principle, and you basically give your animals little sections where they tightly graze it together, and then you move them on each day. Cattle work really well when teamed up with sheep, because they will eat different lengths of grass, so you can get a better graze. So you start with cattle, follow it through with sheep, and then follow it through after a couple of days with chickens, and chickens will go and break up all those cow pats and all that sheep dung. They'll eat any worm eggs, they'll make sure they get any flies and larvae and stuff that are building up in the poo, and they'll naturally scratch also all of that manure. So instead of having big piles of poop, the chickens will scratch it down. So with that sort of system, you don't need fences, you don't need hedgerows, you need kind of electric fencing, lightweight stuff that you can move, because you're going to be moving it on a regular basis. So the idea would be to have a chicken tractor with chicken netting, electric chicken netting. The only kind of prey we have around here are foxes and buzzards, which aren't going to come down and pick things off. They are going to look for carrion. So our chickens should be fairly safe within electric chicken netting, and then shut into the chicken tractor at night. And then fields like this will be one of our main pastures. Talking of buzzards, you probably can't see them, but there are 3 minute dots there. So that's probably our pair with this year's offspring. but it's nice to have them on the farm, and we'll do all we can to kind of protect them. So something else that's probably going to have a lot of impact on your and my farm as well is the labour intensiveness of certain aspects. So when we go back to talking about grazing animals, they're pretty low intensiveness. Once they've got a paddock, you're going to do very little with them. Sheep and cows, you're going to move their fencing if you're doing mob grazing. And then of course there are times when things are intensive, so lambing, calving, and also in the winter when you're having to take up extra foodstuffs. But for the most part, they're fairly easy to do, easy to look after, and you're not going to have to do a large amount of work with them. The only slight thing with that is if you have got a milking cow or you're milking somebody daily, you just need to think about how you're going to move that dairy cow or that goat back from the paddock towards somewhere where you can milk her properly, or you might want to milk her out in the field. But that's something to consider. The main thing when it comes to us is obviously we're very lucky. Our house is kind of in the central part and the fields are all around, so nothing is ever very, very far away. But the base of our business is going to be around a market garden, and a market garden is high manual labour. It's really intensive work. You do not want to be walking 10 minutes before you even get to your polytunnels and your garden. So for that reason, our market farm is going to be right near the house. If you have it far away, then you may have reasons for that, but you need to consider how you're going to get your water there. If you're picking and kind of doing your business around salad greens and you're using a spinner and a dryer, are you going to take all your salad crops from your market garden back towards your packing station nearer your house and your drive to put them into your van to take off to market garden? Is that going to be a long haul? Or are you going to have it out in the market garden, in which case you're going to have to think about how you're going to get your pipe work and your electricity out there. So it makes much more sense to have it nearer your house. The other thing is pest control. We are not going to be certified organic because there's a lot of red tape to go through. However, I am organic. I don't use chemicals, which means I'm going to have to go out and check crops. This area has a high prevalence in flea beetle, so I need to be going and checking my brassica crops regularly. I need to be on slug and snail watch. We are encouraging wildlife here, and that means more rabbits and more deer, which will run riot through your market garden if you let them. So it needs to be close to the house, so that's one of the reasons. So we're going to have our market garden up here. This is going to be the area of our market garden. Our house is just going to be here, and we'll look out across this area. Our wildflower meadow is just through the gap here, so this will mainly be our market garden, and you'll look out the window of our bedroom and you'll see the crops, running away. So you'll see all these rows of hopefully lovely greens and brassicas, lettuces, radishes, all that sort of thing ready to be picked. The other thing we're going to be keeping really near to the house are the falcons, because they're an expensive commodity. That's going to be Saad's business, so it's much better to have them right next to the house so you can hear them, and that's not for logistics or for sort of the manual work of it. That's just for security. Let's head over to the wildflower meadow and I'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'll talk about where we're going to keep the pigs. So our wildflower meadow, so one of our main wildlife projects, is just through this gap. It actually happened by accident that it was in here. This was the only field that wasn't being used by our tenant farmer. So our tenant farmer grows hay on a couple of pastures, and then just uses this main field behind me for sugar beet or for forage food for his animals. So we kind of lumped on this field initially for the wildflower meadow anyway, but actually, as it turned out, this is probably one of the best reasons for it, because anywhere you want to be trying to persuade wildlife to thrive, you actually want it to be far away from humans. So this is one of the fields that's probably furthest away from the house, and let's have a little look around. You've seen it all before, but here is the field. And so this field is far away from the humans, as far as we can get it, so we can leave the wildlife to their own devices. It means that when we're doing our work at the market garden, or we've got, you know, noisy machinery going, the wildlife in here isn't going to be so bothered. It also means that we can creep up here and just take a seat and relax and bird watch. We're going to have that tree right in the middle, that magnolia tree with a bench at the bottom. Go and sit on there and watch and get some silence and some solitude. And hopefully, because it's far further away from human occupants and the noise of the holiday lets and our house and the livestock, hopefully the animals will be able to thrive here. So if you are thinking about putting wildlife areas in, many wildlife won't care. You know, your bugs, your butterflies, even your hedgehogs and things like that, they're not going to care so much. But your more timid species, maybe some sort of rarer species of bird, deer, we've got hares here, so hares, they're going to want to kind of live in an area where there is less human nuisance. So try and put them as far away from your property as possible. So when it comes to farming, I'm all about doing as little as possible. And what that means is working with nature and working with the innate behavioural instincts of animals to get the best, so that you have to do as little as possible to make sure that thrives. And it's the same with gardening as well, you know, this right place, right plant, right place. If you put a plant in the wrong place, you have to work so much harder to make it thrive. And that same principle applies to farming. So, for example, for the sheep and the cows again, they like to forage. I'm going to use their natural herding instincts in the mob grazing. Now, if you're thinking about goats for that, that's not so great of cool, because goats are independent and goats actually don't like that much grass. So you're far better putting goats in an area you want cleared, because they will strip leaves off trees and cut back brambles and things like that. So one of the reasons we're putting the pigs where we are is because I'm kind of using what I need to be done and pairing that together with what I know pigs are good at. So pigs are good at rooting around, making, you know, mud baths, and basically turning over an area. And I've got the pit, and the pit needs to be turned over because it is going to be a vast amount of work otherwise to get in there and clear it all. So why do that myself when I can just get pigs to do it? So the pigs will be going in the pit initially. I'm walking towards that area, and they will be moved through the pit. So like the mob grazing, it won't be so frequent, but they will have pens with electric fencing. I'm not going to have vast numbers of pigs, probably just 2 or 3. And then once they've cleared an area, I'll move them on to the next area and they can clear that area for me. It's the same with the turkeys. Turkeys, chickens are actually natural forest animals. They don't like being out in the open because that's where the predators are going to get them. So I don't want the chickens close to the house because I'm fed up of cock-a-doodle-doos waking me up in the middle of the night. Turkeys, however, are fairly quiet animals. So the turkeys are going to go in the nuttery, and what they'll do is they'll forage around underneath the trees, and we've effectively doubled the efficiency of the area. So we've got the nut trees growing and producing those lovely nuts to harvest, and then we've also got the turkeys in their semi-natural habitat, feeling safe and doing their thing and growing away as well. So here's the edge of the pit, and like all things at the farm, when I'm not here it seems like a small area, and then as soon as I get here, and I know if I started work on here it'd be an absolute nightmare, but you can see that it is absolutely rammed with brambles. There's grassy bits, there's more scrub over there, there's a fox den over there, there's all sorts. This is pig paradise. So the pigs, and actually fairly easy initially to fence this off because this is quite steep. So I might actually be able to get away with just fencing across here initially and letting the pigs clear this bit. As you go through the pit this way, it levels out, and obviously we've got the road just over there, so I'm going to need more fencing. But why come in here and do all this work myself when I can get the pigs to do it? So really, when you are planning your farm, even if it's just a backyard, just think about what you need from the animals and how the animals' natural behaviours can benefit. Because, you're not only going to be helping yourself in that situation, you're actually going to be benefiting the animals and giving them higher welfare, which and it should be all part of farming. So I hope that's given you a little bit of insight into how I've personally planned my farm and where things are going. And things evolve, you know, and they evolve with the more knowledge you've got. So a few years ago, for example, I was just going to throw my animals into big fields. And it wasn't then until I started learning and reading that I realised, no, I don't want to do that at all. That's the wrong move. So obviously, gain as much information as you can, read as much as you can, and just I hope that what I've talked about has helped maybe you think about a few extra things when it comes to planning your own spot. If you've got any questions, please just ask them in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you for joining me today on this video. I hope it's been a little bit helpful. If you've enjoyed it, please hit that thumbs up button and consider subscribing. If you're over on Facebook, come and join us at Brynwood Farms community group. But I'm going to say goodbye for now. Bye bye.